So we've got Pinny here. He is a realtor and he's going to share with us everything about his background, how he got started, and I'm going to ask some fun questions. Penny and I met very recently, and I kind of twisted his arm into coming on the podcast. And he's here, and I'm super excited to ask the questions. Thank you for joining, Penny.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. I think that, from our conversation, we spoke for a number of hours, first over the phone and then in person. And I really loved everything that Penny, that you had to share. And I really focus on surrounding myself, I hope, with people who are like minded, who really are stronger in their values and want to provide good things and help for those around them, and are giving of themselves first and foremost, not just focused on just the bottom line, the dollar amount. So really excited for this conversation.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so tell me, what do people misunderstand about you the most?
It's a really interesting question. Real estate as a whole, from the way I understand it, it's so much to so many layers, and I'm always constantly evolving and learning new things. And a lot of things, I guess people misunderstand about me is the way the way I handle my the way I deal with my real estate business is definitely very unique and out of the box. And a lot of what I do is not the typical what's done out there. To point out, usually, a lot of agents go out, in the beginning they're told to door knock, and they're told to do a lot of these aggressive techniques that I built my brokerage to not go in that direction, and it's been very successful. Um, Regarding the question per se, is I was originally when I wanted to do real estate. Everyone's like, you shouldn't do. You're too much of a soft guy, and it's very aggressive and cutthroat. You're not going to make it out there. You're going to be destroyed. And then I kind of fell into it. And in the beginning, I did see what they were saying because I started off in commercial. It just wasn't my niche. But then when I switched to residential, I did not take the aggressive tactic. I just took the just being myself, first of all, and um, that kind of works for me. And I built my brokerage on that, and the agents that work under me are the same way, very personable.
I love that. I love that so much because, like, in business, like you said, so oftentimes it's so cutthroat, and people think that that's the only way to run a business. And you're running a successful brokerage, and um, showing an example to others that it can be done another way, right? That's what it takes. It takes to be the first, and to lead by example. So, and that's what I noticed about you also. I think that that goes back to what I said before. I just like real people. So I think, to put it simply, you're just a real person.
I appreciate it. I feel like sellers and buyers appreciate that, and they're not looking for someone to be what people call a salesperson, it, or an agent. The typical people get the idea of an agent or a salesperson is I actually had an agent that came to my office that wanted to come over on board with us, and the agent was like, she's like, I'm very good in convincing people to do things. I go, it's not going to be a good fit. But it's not what we do. That's not a salesman. um, that's not what we do. We try to give over the facts, and educate, and let them choose on their own, and not feel that pressure. And
I love that.
yeah.
That's fantastic. What a fantastic philosophy. Um, wow. Wish there were more people like that. That's fantastic.
Well, it helps me because I have less competition, so it's good for me. But the truth of the matter is and I say in my business, we really don't have competition. If you go it the way that I do it, is everyone brings something different to the table, and the high pressured sales pitch, um, in the world of sales, is whoever puts more pressure is a better salesperson, and and I feel like sales should be, is just bring yourself to the table, and wherever somebody feels more connected to, whichever salesperson they feel more connected to, that's who they'll be drawn to. And if you go that way, there is no competition because everyone brings something else, something different to the table, and no every person, no, there's no two people alike. So actually, it would definitely be great if everybody would run with that.
Right. Especially customers, clients, they can really feel if somebody's being transparent with them, if somebody's being honest. People have now such a good BS meter,
Oh
right?
yes, it's. I feel like, yeah, when the going gets tough, you see people's true colors, and if for some reason there's a flex, and there's that that push of you got to move fast and with intensity. You kind of see if the salesperson is really looking out for himself, or they're just educating and just propping them up, and being their, someone that's going to be their extension of what they're looking for, instead of, you know they have so much going against them. They just want to know they have someone with them that's on their side, instead of,
Right. Somebody who has their back.
yeah, someone who's got
Yeah.
their back. And there's so much, especially in real estate. There's a low supply, high demand, very cutthroat. A lot of agents, very few. There's a lot going against you. You know, at least they want to feel like they have somebody that's got their back. And like
Yeah.
you said, the BS meter. I think since it's so aggressive out there, that people are just gave up and looking for somebody that's authentic for two reasons. Number one, they feel like the authentic person, isn't going to get them to the because, in other words, deal with what do you have. In other words, if you can't join them, if you can't beat them, join them. So sadly, I think we're getting to a place in sales, or in general in life, where this is what it is, and let me just get the someone that's gonna be there for me, that's highly aggressive, cutthroat, and I want that person protecting me. In reality, that's not really what you need. What you need is to cut through all that is someone that's hardworking, honest, and I guess when there's no, like, a lot of emotions going on, there's you could, like, kind of, um, be more more thoughtful, and kind of come in with an angle out of the box, and not just like run with the crowd, and just like everybody just like chaos. And I believe that when I've had clients come over to me and there's a lot of chaos and a lot going on around me, I strategize. How do I set my buyer apart from everybody else? Not just like just get my buyers to push up on their offers and numbers. How could I get them to set them apart from the others? And I do that with my brokerage and with my sellers and my buyers. That's that's what I try to do.
So, meaning like when there's not a lot of emotion and like high intensity feelings happening, then they have the, for lack of better words, like yeshuva dat, like complete clarity of mind to be able to make the best decision, to know what the next best step is, what the angle is that they need to run with in order to make things happen.
So what I do is I know that's going to happen. So what I do, in if I we follow patterns, and we know what happens when a house comes on the market. We know how certain agents are going to act, and we know what the typical. In other words, it's very predictable from patterns how an agent's going to react, the seller's agent, the listing agent, the buyers. There's a lot of chaos going. What I want to do is, okay, I want to prepare the buyer beforehand. Okay, this is going to happen. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Let's get yourself ready. So whatever happens, you're not going to be sit there just knee jerk reaction and just push off your offer higher. Let's strategize to make yourself a smarter buyer. And how can you set yourself up in any given situation? So when something comes up, they can make a logical, clear decision on what how to execute the next move, what to do, and be okay with it instead of just you know where everyone's expected to the buyer just to keep on coming up. I don't think that's the way, and I think that that's why we have these markets that are over inflated because people are nervous, and when they're nervous, they just everyone's like just come up, just come up, come up, and you don't have a market that's true to itself, and buyers aren't necessarily making the right decisions that they're really happy with, and they think they are just by coming up. And I don't believe that's the way to go. I feel like sometimes it is, but coming from an educated decision, but not while it's happening. I feel like that's got to be happen. That's got to happen before. When it happens already, it should be like you could weather the storm because you learned how to ride the bike through the storm already. You know, and I explained to them this is going to happen, and pretty much nothing should come out of the nowhere where they don't know how to react, because I've been through so many situations, so I could, and even if something comes out of left field, hopefully I've been in such a situation I could right away educate, and they're just it's something new that they're being educated on. It's not like okay, let me throw 20 things on you right now.
Right, you've already set the expectations in terms of what's going to happen and educated them on what to expect, so that because buying a home or a space that you love, that you've fallen in love with, is very emotional. And especially now with the way that the inventory is, lack of inventory and prices, that it's even more emotional. So I really like that you do that, that you educate your clients first before you go into it, so that when they get there and there is something that happens, you can automatically pivot um, easier. Amazing. And as a realtor, what would you say is your strongest skill?
Interesting. So I've noticed that my strongest skill would be when, again, bringing my buyers or my sellers to, I'm going against, again, it's a strong market, high demand, low supply, is trying to bring my buyers uh, to the top. In other words, a bunch of buyers have a bunch of agents that they could choose, and like, why would they choose me? So what I try to do is try to you know, find their strengths and their weaknesses, and be able to also read, where to put that. In other words, if I get to know somebody and I figure out, what would be a good match. So my idea is to find out which situation would best suit their needs based on their weakness and strengths, what they're looking for is the match. Just like we have the shidduch match, so we have I call it the house match. So I want to try to get it where I don't want somebody like going through 10 houses, 20 houses and feel drained. I want to get to understand the person so well that when there's houses out at the market, I could say, okay, let's focus from what I understand about you. Let's focus on this house. I think this is your strong point. And let's put our energy there. So they're not deflated. Their energy, they don't feel deflated because they've been going through so many houses. In other words, work smart, not hard. So I would say my strength is to really, sometimes people don't know themselves what they want. So I try to speed up their prices as fast as possible and show them, preview a couple of different houses and try to figure out their personality. Whereas to save them a lot of time, and people are very busy and they don't want to keep on going to open houses and wasting their time. So I try to be as much as being on point what their needs are, and also practical in the outside in the housing market where they could fit their needs and where their needs could be fit. That's why I feel like I've that's my strength.
I feel like your hidden superpower is almost like people's psychology and understanding, understanding instead of being cutthroat, right? Like that's the normal model that most people run by. But I feel like the model you run by is people's psychology, and that is how you run point on everything that you do.
I mean, they say you kind of like, even the dating process, or anything, that looking for houses, you kind of figure out a lot about yourself, what you like, what you don't like. So if I come to someone, I'll say, what do you want? They really, from what they understand, only from the information that they have, they can tell you what they want. So what I'll try to do is I try to ask them for their, you know their past, what schools they went to, what type of kids, where they came from, their all the different dynamics that they bring to the table. And and then I would tell them, before we even, and they say, okay, I want to look at a house in this area, and they might think that their area, that areas would be okay with them. I'll say, wait a second, I could show you 5 houses in that area, and then you're gonna go move there, and you're gonna figure out you don't like it. So I would say, why don't you go there, check it out, see if you know any friends that live there. And some people are like, you know what? I checked it out. I don't think that place makes sense for me. So I just saved that person so much time, and they figured out what they don't want. And by process of elimination, they also figure out more of what they do want. And I try to zone in on, again, what sets them apart from everybody else. I also ask people, instead of telling me what they do want, everybody wants the same, they got a lot of people have a similar list of what they want. So I ask the person, what are you able to put up with that you really rather not have? And that's what sets somebody apart from someone else. And that's what really helps me navigate them. Again, beat the crowd out there that they're going up against. Is what are you okay with? And I mean, I had a listing yesterday. I took someone where nobody was there, and he's like, there's no like younger families moving to that area, and he's like, it's like, I like it. It's nice and quiet. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is for you, and it's affordable for him. I'm like, this is great. I'm like, you just set yourself apart with everybody else. And actually, right before I came on the podcast, they said they wanted to make an offer, and that made me feel like that's what I could bring to the table, is somebody who's priced out of the neighborhood, but what they're willing to give up on. Actually, they actually like that. They want their peace and quiet, and a little bit introverts, and it works for them. I would have, you know, kept on showing them everything else out there and just wasted their time.
I feel like you probably spend a little bit more, maybe a lot of bit more time with people, getting to really know them.
Oh, yes, I feel like, interesting enough, that if I spend more time listening, and not just, just running around, with a chicken without a head, just listening and listening and listening. It's literally, yeah, the more time I spend listening and trying to connect and understanding, there's less time I'm going to be out there in the field with them,
You're
because
putting time up front
upfront,
rather
right?
than, yeah.
And
But
it just, it helps so much for everybody. There's never, wasted time. And even if someone decides that it's not for them and they won't want to move to like out of state, that's great, because I helped them in their journey. And even if it wasn't with me, but I helped them on the process, and I save them endless amount of time just showing them a bunch of houses, and it's very aggravated. And I'm happy to help, to be part of the journey. I don't have to be at the end when it has to close the house with them. I'm okay with just being the person that helped them on the journey.
wow, what a great mindset. I mean, I think that that needs to be the title of this podcast. I mean, it's what a wonderful, wonderful mindset.
Well, interesting. So I started off like that. I enjoy, helping people find their homes. What comes out of it is, sometimes it's a home, sometimes it's like, it's not for us yet, and even sometimes they'll move. But interesting enough, I feel like I that itself leaves an impression on people. And if they have a friend that wants to sell or buy, interesting. I didn't, that wasn't my idea, but it's interesting that just going through that direction, I get so many referrals. Oh, you just helped me out. And you're so gentle with me, and nothing came out of it per se. Like house wise, but you left an impression by me, and I want to send it over to someone else. So my business has been referral based, just by me just being my authentic self, which is great because they tell you if you enjoy what you work, you'll never if you enjoy what you do, you'll never work a day in your life, and that's how I feel.
Right. Because you get to be around people, you get to, the psychology aspect of things, you get to help them, and all of that amazing stuff. So, can you tell me a little bit about how you got into this in the first place? Was there a specific turning point that inspired you? How did it all start for you?
Interesting. I first was a teacher for 5 years, a Rebbe, a Judaic teacher for 5 years, and my passion was to educate. It's interesting that I do the same thing pretty much, but I like to educate, and that didn't really pay the bills, but I enjoyed it. So my next part, actually, I was going to go to social working school. I wanted to be a therapist. I like to connect people. I like to help. I come from I come from a lot of different backgrounds. Grew up in different backgrounds, and I figured, like, I could understand a lot of people and relate to a lot of different people because I've been through so many different backgrounds. So in that sense, I could relate, and like to consider myself a deep uh, thinker and empathetic person, and I want to make a difference out there. Social working's, from what I understood, it also takes time to build up to get your own private practice, and I needed to hit the ground running. So I didn't take that. Then I decided to do sales. Interesting enough, I tried jewelry. I tried so many different things, but I didn't enjoy it. I said, if I want to do something that I enjoy, and I was trying to sell product, but I brought it out to, as a sales pitch, and they're like, you know, there's nothing really intrinsic that I was able to bring to the table. This is what it is. These are the prices, and it just, I feel like I wasn't using my strengths. And then, interesting enough, my friend kept on saying, do real estate. A bunch of people kept on echoing real estate, and I didn't do it for a couple of years because everyone's like, it's cutthroat, or everyone does it, and most people don't make it. And it's true. If you look at the numbers, it's it doesn't look good. How many people actually are successful in it? It's a lot of people. So I actually, it was a last man standing, where I was like, you know what, I got nothing else, and I said, let me try it. I did try commercial, and very transactional, very transactional, and I very transactional. So I didn't feel it. I was able to, like, it was great, a lot of connecting, a lot of, but again, I didn't feel that personal part of it that I went in for, which my passion was. It's nice taking a restaurant and, like, doing a restaurant. It's different than putting someone in a home, taking a house and making someone a home. Interesting enough, it fell into my lap. Um, I used to go to city every day, commercial, and it was very hard, the traveling and hustle bustle out there. I was like right in the rat race. One time I was just walking home and somebody was making a yard sale. I'm like, I don't know, I did 1 plus 1. I'm like, yard sale? Like, are you looking to sell? It's like, yeah. It's like, but I'm thinking about using someone else. And I just schmoozed with him, and I never sold one house before. And I don't know why. He was a real nice gentleman. We connected. He's like, you know what? I'll give you a shot. You sound like a nice guy. I don't know. Today, I don't know
Oh
why.
my gosh.
I don't know why he gave me a shot. I had nothing to bring to the table, other than other than give me a shot. And I'll never forget him. I had I had no I had no I had no experience in residential. I had zero experience in residential, but I just said, you know what, I'm going to put my heart and soul into this guy, into this house. It's my first house. It's my first time, it's my first impression. It's everlasting. The community that I live in is they're very close knit. It's a community. Everybody knows each other. Everybody built themselves up from the top. They immigrants that literally came in and started from the bottom up, which I really appreciated because it makes a certain person out of you, and I like that. And when I met this person, I'm like I related in that sense, and he liked that I was starting, and I had actually I got my office like this too. I was actually had this my office. I was supposed to be a rental that I was doing, and he's like, it was a nice old Italian couple, and they started crying. They said, you remind me of us when we came from Italy, and we came with nothing, and we started from the bottom up. And I was renting somewhere else, but it was a short term lease. He turns to me, he's like, I want you to take us over here, and I want you to take this lease, and you remind me of us. And he, with tears, he would turn to me, and I'm like, "Oh, wow. Um, he, that's when I took over this office, and again, going back to this first client of mine, it went beautiful. I mean, right after I sold the house, I got so many. Had so many learning experiences just in one house because I right away felt the buyer market, I felt the seller market, I was in tune to it, I was able to um, you know feel what's needed, what's wanted. He right away had a relative and a friend that he sent me to, and that friend sent to another friend, and I was really officially supposed to be working in the city. And I think that year I must have sold 12 houses. Where the company I was working for um, turned to me. He's like, I want you to open a brokerage with my son-in-law. He's like, I've seen you come from the bottom and you just like rose up so fast, and I like your ethic. I like your ethic, your work ethic. It's old school, old soul. I love that, and I want you to. It's interesting enough that I ended up creating my own brand because, again, like I said before, I didn't want to copy and paste. I like what I started building up, and I wanted to be my brand. And even though he is a very large company, and it would have been great, I'm sure I would have been very successful. But I didn't want to sell my soul to what I believed in, and I wanted to keep my own mom and pop. The way stay true to myself, and
To who you are.
to
Yeah.
yes, and
Yes.
I'm not, and I always get calls, from different brokerage. They're like big names. I won't do it because I really enjoy what I do, and I feel like people really need that authenticity, um, and I won't be able to do it on a large scale.
Hmm.
I
I
know,
love that.
yeah, which is hard because it's hard to grow and keep it personal at the same time, because then sometimes you kind of like it waters down what you really came out for, and I've seen that with in a lot of different businesses and people in general, where they take more than they could handle, and they something's got to give. So I'm trying to like balance the two where I could still keep my signature, but also accommodate, the buyers and sellers, and keep my brand.
And I love that you're instilling that into the people that work around you because, to some extent, even though it might not work at massive scale, that at least the people that are working with you can have some sort of impression from the way that you work with others and operate on that level as well with authenticity.
Right. I mean, the idea is I really never wanted to open up a brokerage. The reason why I opened up a brokerage is because I wanted to do my own thing, and then I had other agents that reached out to me, and they wanted to be part of my brokerage, and that's definitely, yet one of the questions. Not my strengths is the whole techie stuff and management, and that's something I really have to start figuring out.
Yeah, you definitely, like, we all have our wheelhouse, our genius, our zone of genius, and we need to lean on the strengths of other people that can do it better than we can. And if we're collaborators and we're able to bring people together and be at CEO level and have be the visionaries and have the foresight to know who needs to be brought on in order to make this the best venture possible. We don't need to do it all. We just need to surround ourselves with the people that are even smarter than we are.
So what happened was I had, I wanted to get a secretary at one point, and someone was like, no, no, but it's Penny I want to speak to. I'm like, just could I just take a message? No, no, it's not important. I wanted to speak to him. I'm like, ah. So what I did was, is I said I'm looking for an agent that has the same. What happens if someone calls me and they're asking to like look for a certain house in a certain neighborhood, and I want them to have an agent that's going to really take care of them the way I believe they should be taken care of. I would delegate. I would give some people some brokers give buyer as a brokerage. Why am I coming to you? Besides what your brand recognition of what your brand stands for, they also want a seller lead or a buyer lead. So I do give my agents buyer leads. I say, you know what, I'm overextended. I I have enough. I have a certain amount on my plate, and I want to be able to be there for them. I think you would be just like I take a buyer and I put them in match with a house. I'll take a buyer and match them with an agent I think they would be most successful with connecting with. Um, and even a seller sometimes that would call me, and I know that if I don't think I can handle because I'm too overextended, I would either give it to one of my agents, delegate it to an agent that I feel like would be a great fit for that area slash seller, or co-list it together with one of my agents. So that's what I'm trying to like figure out.
That's amazing. And I really love how the origin story of how you initially were thinking about going into psychology, and like how it just, I mean, that's literally what you're doing in real estate. You're doing real estate psychology.
It's when you, I guess when you're dealing with such a the most I think most one of the most important decisions in your life, where you're going to set your home. It's you get to see all people's sides, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So I have to be ready for all three. And uh, when I say ugly, I don't mean ugly as in bad. I mean as in sometimes it's just chaotic. Someone could be a very logical person, and they're like, I don't know. For some reason, I became this. When it came to a
It's
house,
stressful.
I became
Yeah,
and I'm like, okay, so okay, how do we bring that down a notch and bring it down that it shouldn't be on you. That's my job, is to make it as least stressful as possible. And yes, and they're like, and that's pretty much what my job would be. What I try to do is bring it down a couple of notches and take over, take again talking psychology. What's making you stressful? What's stressful about it? That's my job. You don't have to worry about that. You know, I'll tell you where to go and what to do. The rest is God. And the only times they're stressful about it, I understand it, is we have to do the right, we say establish, we have to have, in other words, they get stressful when people want to know that at least they're doing the right thing. In other words, they want to make sure they're doing the right thing. And afterwards, I could tell them, okay, like, I don't know what's typical. Am I supposed to do this? Am I supposed to do that? Should I be nervous? Should I call you 20 times? Should I, should I outbid myself? I'm like, so if I tell them what's typically done and I have to figure out this specific agent, this specific house, actually, I feel like you should do A, B, and C. You have to trust the process. I got this. and all of a sudden you feel the energy comes down, then I feel like, okay, I did my job that day. Then I become, and everyone's different. Some people need, more here, more there, but I guess to figure out what exactly is bothering them.
So, with that philosophy in mind, who would you say has had the biggest impact on that approach, and why do you think that is?
So interesting enough, it shows you how like nothing is in vain, and you can learn from anything and everything in life. Everything's a learning experience. Even though I've lost so much, commissions and money and listings and buyers, and I try to like take out of it, what could I learn, um, what could I learn from this interaction, what not to do next time or what I should have done. Interesting enough, my commercial, monetarily wise, I hardly like I didn't I hardly did any commercial sales when I was doing commercial. But the person that I learned under was an older guy, and he was old school, worth ethic, very friendly, very very rigid. Which I had to be there. Officially real estate agent, you get your own hours, do your own thing, and I wanted to have that flexibility. He wouldn't let me do that. I had to be there in the city at 9 o'clock, and I wouldn't push back on him because I needed that. In my end, I needed that type of rigidity, you know. But he was very friendly with the locals, and the way he spoke, and he brought knowledge to the table. There's always a sense of calm, and people just liked his energy, and they just wherever we went, people came over to him, and he didn't have to do anything. He just was there, and his energy was as such. And I learned a lot from him, and I learned from this specific guy was was my guru, and I just followed him around and listened and watched everything he did. And I didn't, again, not copied him. We always have to be ourselves, but his work ethic, his being honest and authentic, that um, it strengthened me that showed me that it's not true. What's out there, that best to be aggressive, and he was in the middle of it all in the city. That's 10 times more aggressive than what I have in the residential sector. And what we call, there's so many open listings over there. There's a lot more, you know, uh, that you're going against in the city, and that's why I learned from him.
You were a sponge to everything. Yeah, to everything that I mean, the person halomed mechavero, right? The person that's wise is the person that learns from his friend, not copies, like you said, but somebody who learns from whoever it is. From our kids, we learn, right?
We learn, and he was a leader, and I was so I felt so humbled, for him to take me on, and he saw in me what I didn't even see in me, and he pushed me, and I pushed myself, and I didn't realize that I wasn't even going to stay there. I didn't realize that I was just being prepped for, later down the line, being on my own, and it was a blessing.
I love that he let you do that too. Like not let, but like encouraged you also, like saw your potential. I think that's what you mentioned earlier. Was that him that encouraged you to
Yes, he saw that it was a far drive. He also saw that I had a lot what he had, but he was more of commercial, like numbers, and you know he had that type of, it's a different personality, commercial. And he saw that. Interesting. I feel like if you just like let go and you just put your best foot forward, whatever's meant for you just gravitates to you. And I just, at that point, I didn't know what was best for me. I was just trying my best in what I had. And residential, I guess, it just, like I said, I was just walking home one day. It just happens. It happened naturally. I didn't ask for it. I didn't push for it. It came to me, and naturally I weaned myself off of there, and then I worked for someone else, and then naturally that left open up my own brokerage, and I feel like I'm just gonna keep on trying my best and putting my best foot forward and just following, where the energy takes me and just keep on going.
How would you say the market has changed since you first started? Like, how many years ago was that, and how has it changed since?
Interesting enough, everybody complains when the market, you know, tanks or does something crazy like COVID. And now I actually really, really, when that happens, I find myself, I, I feel like it separates you from everybody else. In other words, when the market's strong, everyone's doing amazing, and you don't have to be an amazing agent, and you don't have to be totally in tuned. Everyone's doing great. What happens is when you see your strengths is when you get when you get shook, when the market shakes, then I feel like that's when the people that whatever like that's when the goods are separated from the typical your typical agent or anything in any job. So there's less houses on the market now. There's high interest rates. All it means is that you have to just bring more of your game, bring more authenticity, and people are looking for more. Okay, I have to find a better edge because it's a tough market. So again, that's what I try. That's what I do on a daily. That means when just like I prepare my buyers for when chaos happens, when a listing happens, I'm already prepared. I work every day to my fullest extent within what I have. So that means even if the market goes haywire, I'm able to navigate. Okay, so how do we? There's definitely people are still selling, people are still buying, just less of both. How do I set myself apart? Just like I'm asking my buyers to setting themselves apart, I just copy and paste the same thing, and I don't feel at all. I don't feel the when people COVID or now. I'm working. I'm doing the same. I'm doing the same as I was before. I'm not affected to it, and I my buyers I don't think are affected as well because I'm I'm used to it.
So, how do you stay up to date on what's happening and to navigate? Like, to some extent, obviously, prices are a lot higher now, and there's a lot less inventory. But in terms of what's happening in the market, how do you stay up to date? And what trends are you observing in the market right now?
Interesting. What I don't do is I don't look at anything on everybody else out there that's telling everyone what they think is happening and trends. I believe that there's so much fluff out there, and there's so many again salespeople that I feel like the only way to really know what's happening trend wise is to literally be involved, embedded in the market, and being in tune to it, in tune to the buyers, in tune to the sellers, and I kind of feel like one with the market, and I could feel where the market's holding. Whereas if I just looked at trends, they're so off. Like it's like the weather. It's so hard to get it right. And I feel like whoever's giving the trends, I said if they really knew what's going to happen in the stock market and the real estate market, they wouldn't be out there telling everybody what they think the trends are. They would really be investing. They would be investing if they really thought they felt that's the trend. They wouldn't be telling everybody. I believe this is the trend. I really believe that there's a lot of they're the ones that creating this false narrative all the time because there's a lot of knows where is the market really holding and where is what we call um, there's a lot of fluff out there. Again, it's fake sales. A lot of people it's all powered with emotions um, and
Creating fear.
creating fear based and
Yeah.
when it comes down to it, when all fluff is gone, where is the market holding? That's what I want to feel. Where exactly is the market holding? Not, and I try not to listen, and I don't want to hear it because I know they're all coming with a direction where they're just following where the fear is and trying to. And what happens is at one point the market's going to reset, and and it falls, and it comes down. It doesn't come down where it should be. Usually goes lower because it has to reset, and then it balances itself. It balances itself. It balances at one point. That we know. That's a trend that we know. We know that it goes very high and it goes very low, and then it levels, and then it goes high again. So my idea is trying to keep on where's the baseline, the true baseline, and stick to that. And that I could only understand is with being really in tune to it and being involved with it. One, and not listening to all the noise around me, but also being practical. That, like I said, a lot of people fall into where there is a lot of noise around, and that does it does affect the market in a real way. We have to be in tune to the reality that all this other, buzz and fear base does affect the market. So I have to be in tune to that as well, not just be like, okay, but that's not the real market. No, no. Practically right now, it is the real market. The question is, how high, how long is that going to go? Be in tune to the reality of what everyone else is causing, but however, also being attuned to that's not going to last. We don't know how long it's not going to last, but we know it's not going to last. Where's the base? Because there's so much fear going on, you kind of lose your base. As much as I want to be in tune to the base, you kind of lose the base because we're always going very high, going very low, and the flat line, we lose the flat line. So that's really it's I'm trying to figure out, you know, um, again, if you can't, I can't go against a whole market. I have to be in tune to it too. But I try as much as possible when I'm in it. Is I don't want my own buyers to buy into this fear based of the market and overpay, but I also want them to be practical, and that's the fine line that I have to bring to the table. Is how do I be practical that I don't overpay, but also at the other end, um, um, being tuned to the market.
So where do you think we are on the curve? Do you think that it's already peaked and it's coming down now?
Oh wow. The problem is that again, it's politics. What we're coming into. You know, um, it's falling into Palestine. They don't want it. We don't want to. They don't want to crash. There have been corrections, but I would love to say I know. It's just I tell people I don't know. What I do know when I tell buyers is whatever it is, definitely buy because either it's going to go up, keep on going up and refinance, or it's going to stay the same and you're not rental, just paying your rental and throwing money in the garbage, or it's going to go down, which you can refi. And even if it goes down, the prices are going to go up. And we don't know what's going to happen. The truth is, we don't know how long the curve is going to be. So my way, I tell people just buy again, but be an educated buyer. Doesn't mean just go with the craziness. Buy, but with being very practical and cautious, and just understand that we went from 3 to 7 within such a short amount of time, and now we're like coming down a little bit. It's just so unstable. It's so unstable. But we do know rents went up. So yes, interest rates went up, but rents also went up because the lack of supply and demand.
Especially in the Jewish area, rentals are very, very expensive. Everything is very expensive.
Well, anywhere we have supply and demand. So if we have less houses on the market, it means rentals are more in demand. So if rentals are more in demand, guess what? The mortgage rate that went up makes sense because I'm paying more rent. So we're still it still makes sense to buy. I really don't like people uh, throwing money in the garbage and renting. That's a lose lose situation. The idea of waiting for interest rates to go down is I don't believe that's the way to go.
Right. Except that a lot of the mortgages now are cost more than renting in many of the markets, correct?
Correct. But the problem is, yes, it does ratio wise. It does. Even though rentals have gone up, it didn't. It's still the ratio wise. wasn't as the gap wasn't as big as it is now, it still costs more to correct it. It doesn't make sense. But I tell people, you're getting equity in your house. Let's say you have a year where you paid a little more in the house as regard to renting. They have equity in the house, and hopefully house prices are still going up. So in the bigger scheme, in the day to day, you're right. But in the bigger picture, and I've seen, it still makes sense to buy, even if interest rates don't go up, because the answer can't be just keep on renting um, and hoping for the interest rates to go down. I don't believe that's the way to go.
Mm. So, can you tell us a little bit, like in your experience, what are some common challenges that realtors face, um, and how do you overcome them? How do you navigate?
Oh wow, realtors. Okay, I a big um, challenge that I've noticed personally is that buyers don't understand what realtors bring to the table, and sellers. A lot of sellers like, what do I need you? I could just put a house. It's such a, especially now there's low supply, high demand, even more so. I don't need an agent. I'll put a for sale by owner sign. And what do I need you for? Agents themselves. I could just I could go to Zillow. What do you bring to the table? And that's a lot of, again, that's me educating, but there's a lot of false pretexts that agents are overpaid for doing. They're very overpaid for bringing almost nothing to the table, and we bring a lot, way more than even the people that do realize to the table for buyers and sellers. And again, that's educating my buyers, and they're right. If I'm spending my time trusting you for the most expensive person in my house, what do you bring to the table? Sellers as well. What's stopping me from putting for sale by owner sign, putting on Zillow, making my own open houses? Why am I paying you X amount of dollars, something I can do it myself? And the answer is most agents, a lot of agents, and they really can't answer that question. They really can't, because and I understand where the sellers are coming from, because it's so easy to be an agent. It's literally a course. It's like other jobs you could go to, you get your bachelor's and you could spend so much money and time in college, and you're making a certain amount. You're making a salary, whereas you could sell a house and make the same salary with taking a course. That's wow. So you have to really explain what you're bringing to the table. That for someone to pay you that amount of money, and if someone can't explain what they bring to the table, then I understand why a seller would say, in general, I don't understand. I don't see why I have to use an agent. And I understand them, and I explain to them. I totally understand what your preservation is, and let me explain to you what we bring to the table, and to the buyer as well. But really, that's my answer.
Would you say that technology like Zillow or other technologies have really disrupted the industry?
They have for uneducated sellers. It means that all we have to do, what I agree, it means that agents are held to, should be more held to what they're saying, what they bring to the table, because more and more so, like there's a lot of other jobs that computers have taken over. But when it comes to sales, a good salesman, everything is what they bring to the table is what they talk. If yes, technology has come over, and sales technology should never be able to take over sales. If the salesperson brings to the table what they're supposed to bring, there is no competition. A computer shouldn't be able to take over a salesperson. If they are, that means the salesperson isn't doing what they're supposed to do. Not that there's a gap that the internet is filling, that a salesperson can't fill. It's just it's supposed to be a tool that an agent. It's supposed to be a tool that an agent uses for part of his sales pitch, but it shouldn't be the tool at all. Um,
Like it can't take over
no,
negotiation.
no, it
So,
can't. And no, it can't. It's just like a therapist. We said before, therapist, and yeah, it's you know we shouldn't. We're never gonna have therapists. You have these robots that they're over sudden therapist and they can sit down and talk to you and say and wave their hand, yes, yes, yes. This certain type of and I don't call it therapist sales, but it's there's a lot of value that's brought on the table that no computer or no technology will ever take over, and hopefully people understand that.
What would you say would be some effective negotiation techniques that you found successful in terms of real estate? I know that you mentioned the personable thing, but is there anything specific?
Interesting, yeah. I feel like, well, it depends on it. Sometimes I have a seller that's yes, they want top dollar, but they want to make sure the house is given over to someone that appreciates and gives over the energy, someone that appreciates their house for what it was. And interesting enough, I had somebody that was selling their house, and they were almost in tears because I brought them a couple with a little dog, and they brought their in-laws, and he started tearing up my sellers. I'm like, what's the matter? He's like, I want these people. I'm like, why? He's like, it reminded me when I bought my house. I came, we had a little puppy, and we were starting off, and my parents and in-laws, they came to help us as a family to chip in. And it reminds me, and it struck a chord. And that was one of the first houses I sold, and it brought to my table for the future that I've realized it's not always about the money. Yes, money is a lot of it, and people want to give their home over to someone that they feel comfortable. That's just on an emotional level. On the practical level, the monetary level, is I try to make my, we say in a lot of time real estate, highest and best offer. So it's not always the highest. Um, Sellers want to feel, they want to go to sleep at night knowing that this house will close. And so we call it best, highest and best. Best means best terms. So I try to make my buyers as strong as possible in so many different ways that when other buyers come to the table, they can say, why should I choose your buyer over someone else's buyer? I would say, well, because my buyer has X, Y, and Z. And obviously, the mortgage broker they use, and I'm behind them. I'm a broker, have a certain amount of years and a certain amount behind me, and I personally vouch for them. And I'm using somebody. I try to keep a lot of things in house where people want to feel everything's moving smoothly. Well, I'll try to get a lawyer for my buyer that knows the seller's attorney. They feel comfortable with. I'm like, I know you have a lawyer you're related to, whatever. What could I do to make this process easy for you as a seller, that everyone's on the same page, and whatever that may be. Sometimes the seller needs more time post possession after he sells to sell the house. For instance, I said, with besides money, what can I bring to the table that makes you feel more relaxed and secure? Besides money, I asked the seller instead of money wise. In other words, what it's a lot. I tell people emotions translates into money sometimes. So if two people are giving similar offers, I'm saying, what makes you feel more comfortable? Well, if they buy contents in my house, I'm like, great. They feel like, oh my gosh, you're using my mom's table. They love your mom's table. They want to buy the contents, and that person makes them feel happy. Another person makes them feel happy is they'll say, I want more time, to live in my house afterwards. I don't. It's not about the money. Another person, everyone's got different emotional needs that make them happy.
So, by understanding people better, you're able to then give them something that money cannot buy.
Correct. Yes, and they're not ready for that. I have a seller, and like usually it's like, okay, what's the most, and they move on. It could be a 2 minute conversation. I bring the buyer, I make a couple open houses. I I have people, they say, well, I had an agent, he sold my house in 3 days. Um, I feel that's great, and, that's I think any agent that would have had that house that would have put her on MLS on the market for that price would have done the same. That doesn't set one person apart or one agent apart, and that's what I understand that a computer could take over, and they don't need an agent for that. They could have put it for sale by owner, made it open house, and got the highest and best. Yes, there's negotiations that's happened back and forth, but that's just a piece in the puzzle. But that doesn't bring the total value of an agent. That brings a percentage, but not the whole percentage. What I feel is sitting down and giving them the time. And yes, I'll take less listings because it takes more time, but I want to understand what exactly do you want on the table besides um, highest, the most money. And I want the price again. It's about the process. And it was besides I got the most money for my house. I enjoy the process of selling the house because it's closure. I know when somebody passes and there's an estate, I've noticed that some people like going through they go through albums while they're taking everything out because time it's part of the grieving process. It's part of the process. So when somebody leaves their house of 35, 40 years, there's they don't want to just like, some people, okay, it's less emotional and they're just it's okay. I'm not like that. I'm like, okay, I just want to know what you're like. Someone else like, um, you know, I for me, part of the grieving process and part of leaving my house, going from here to Florida, it's such a after doing something for 35 years. I need more. I need A, B, and C, and sometimes they don't know, and I figure it out with them together. I'm like, well, I didn't realize, this helps me. And sometimes somebody gives me a high price and it's like, I want to sell my house. I'm like, you don't really want to sell your house because you're not ready to because you can't depart with it. That's why you want a higher number, and it's going to self-sabotage. No one's going to offer it. And he's like, you're right. So I said, how about let's wait a year, sit in your house more. I think you need time. You know, it's all about timing. And when you're really ready, call me up instead of, having this crazy high price. Because in a year when you're going to be ready, you're going to look like a seller that's not serious because you had some crazy high number before. Really, you were self sabotaging. You didn't feel good enough. Again, that might not be the reason, but we talk about it. And I feel like I could be an agent and say yes and take the listing now and waste my time, your time, and then it's okay. You're like, I don't have to sell it anyways now, or we could just and they'd be like, you know what? I just got a phone call yesterday. Someone called me after 6 years, and I didn't pressure them. And like, I like you because you don't pressurize, and I'm calling you because I promised you I'll call you when I'm ready. It was 6 years ago.
Wow.
You
Wow.
left an impression, and I know that 20 people probably knocked on their doors, a million phone calls, that a bunch of ads that came in their door, and I have zero competition because, again, even if they would choose someone else, it's because they felt more comfortable with someone else. That's great, but I already showed myself. They saw who I was. They saw what I brought to the table, and even if someone else came and they felt comfortable with someone else, that's okay because that wasn't meant for me, and I stayed true and I was my authentic self, and that was great.
Wow. So many golden nuggets. What would you say is the most important lesson that you've learned throughout your career and all of this?
Uh, just I think just be your in anything sales, just be your authentic self, and really give it your all, and go above and beyond. And whatever you think you tried your hardest, try a little more, because that's that's noticed by buyers or sellers or anything in sales is the person that goes above and beyond. Even if my seller or buyer wouldn't even notice it, but I know it, and I've seen it always uh, come across in different ways. Anyways, you know, that's what I would say.
Amazing. Is there one question that you wish I would have asked you?
That's a great question. Um,
Everybody gets stuck on this one.
yes, totally
It's
get
like, no, we spoke about everything there is under the sun.
I guess you touched on it before. Is what do I feel like I have to? What should I be working on? So obviously, I don't like to like go deep on that because it's like it's hard because it would be time taking out of the clients. I have so much, I'm so busy with my clients and buyers and sellers. Sometimes it's good to be objectively okay. I have to take out time, and what do I have to work on? And growth is unfamiliarity, and it's uncomfortable. But I don't like obviously talking about it as much because then it's something that
It's vulnerable.
it's vulnerable. It's really exactly it's being
Yes.
vulnerable, and it's also it's okay because everyone's got things that they have to work on. But I do have a lot of, you mentioned one of your questions before. uh, What are people? What is criticism that people have had of me that I definitely take is that I don't answer my phone a lot. Um, it's because I can find myself speaking to someone for an hour because I want them to understand what I'm giving over, and then I just do six phone calls that I didn't answer, and there are six. Real estate and sales is very time sensitive. If you don't pick up that phone, they'll get insecure and they'll call up someone else right away because they feel like that house was gone between those that hour. In their head, the house was gone, and I have to figure out how to balance my time and you know not to be as spread thin as I feel like I am. And
I think that goes so much to your personality in being transparent because somebody who's not growing and not improving can't adapt to everything that comes at them in life. And so, and if you don't know what your weaknesses are, then you won't be able to adapt, change, and grow accordingly. So it's fantastic. I love that you shared that. I really appreciate that vulnerability to share with our audience because more people, I believe, more people need to be transparent, to be vulnerable, to say, "Hey, I don't know this," or "This is where I'm struggling at," or "This is, I might not answer the phone, but it's because I am giving somebody the attention that they need in order to sell the house, and I will do the same for you."
right, right, I do say that with my like, oh my gosh, I can't get a hold of you. I'm like, you're gonna like that if I'm actually selling your house because like I'm that. But I've noticed obviously that's great. But at the end of the day, there's got to be some type of communication, like maybe a quick text. I'll get back to you within the hour, or some type of. I have to find a way to you know um, communicate and still be there, and you know I'm working on it.
Amazing. So, can you give us some from our conversation, just three key takeaways or tips regarding real estate?
Okay, sure. Try not to listen to the outside buzz of where the market's going or coming or not going. Definitely buy. Buy. Um, into buy. Um, Real estate agents and do bring a lot to the table. Um, get to know your real estate agent, whoever it is. Definitely, you have a right to question and make sure you feel you're being taken care of. Also, be your authentic self, even as a buyer, as a seller. This is, just put everything on the table. It just helps us do what we do.
That's amazing. Penny, it was such a pleasure speaking with you. Where can our audience find you?
I have a website, pinnerrealty.com.
Amazing. We'll link that in the show notes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for being here. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Have to have you again soon.
Awesome.